Well, it seems that evil is here is enough, isn't it? But still, if we understand why it is here and its origin, perhaps we can cope with the matter in a better way. The origin of evil. To understand evil, or realize our relationship with it, so to speak, that we can better cope with it, means that one or two facts must be taken into consideration. And if you will always remember these one or two facts, evil will not have such a hold on you if it does. There is one eternal substance, and that one eternal substance is God. God, the one Spirit, all-pervading, the cause and end of all things, the cause and end of all things. Therefore, from that one eternal substance, all things must come. This one eternal Father has two aspects, so to speak. First, the unmanifested. The unmanifested, the cause and end of all things. The other aspect is the manifested aspect. And that is the cosmic dream aspect of God. The cosmic dream aspect of God. Yet these two things come from one sole cause, one sole substance, God alone. Therefore you can see that evil must come from that one source. We will come to that later. One eternal substance, one aspect unmanifested, the other aspect manifesting as this cosmic dream. Now in that manifesting aspect we find what we call good and evil. And the moral law enters into that. We will come to that later also. So understand those two important things. First, there is only one God. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. There cannot be any other cause of things except the one eternal supreme Spirit, God alone. But one aspect manifests the cosmic dream, and in that manifestation we have what is known as good and evil. And understand that those two things, and you will not be troubled so much with this evil that we find all about us. One thing, if you can always remember your own state of consciousness, as you close your eyes, especially if you are calm, there will be one consciousness there, still, and the feeling of bliss will be there. That we might liken to God's unmanifested state. Now, you take a little bit of your consciousness, and on one side you begin to dream with it. It can be done consciously with practice. But that's what happens in our dream. You take a little bit of it, and this dream is projected by what and from what? Your own consciousness. And all those dreams which you have dreamed and will dream are nothing but a fragment of your own consciousness. Now in that dream, there is where we have the duality. There is where we have the likes and dislikes. There is where we have the hero and the terrible villain. Everything in that one aspect of consciousness. Remember this thing. Master said, remember these two things. Your dream state and the state or the illustration of the motion picture. Remember these. It'll help you tremendously. Now, you can consciously dream that dream with your own consciousness. That dream is a fragment of your consciousness. Now, if you can see and perceive that dream and know that you are doing that and that it is not reality, but a part of your own consciousness, you'll never be attached to that dream. But what happens? We are immediately attached and we suffer, and when we wake up we say, boy, am I glad that's over. Why? Because you were attached, that's all. You were attached to that dream state of consciousness. And what was that dream state of consciousness? Nothing but your own consciousness manifesting as that dream. And so with God, we have the same thing with this creation. Yes, it's a dream of his. It's like the motion picture. A beam of light comes, and in that beam are all images which are thrown on the screen of light and shadow. And we come along and enjoy it so much that sometimes we weep and cry and carry on and want to kill somebody and all sorts of things. Why? Because we are attached to that motion picture. And that light and shadow is nothing but light and shadow from the one eternal reality, the beam of light from the motion picture booth. So in us, that dream through which we pass, or those dreams, are nothing but our own consciousness with this duality of existence, likes and dislikes, different shadows, nothing but our own consciousness, and we become attached to it. Therefore we suffer. Now you will not suffer from the forces of evil unless you become attached to the cosmic dream, or unless you become attached to that state of consciousness in which evil exists. Evil does not exist in the one eternal presence of God. It isn't there. There's only a unity of consciousness. And that unity is characterized by love and peace and bliss. And when you feel it, there is no evil. But when we come out into this cosmic dream with its duality, its relativity, then we have likes and dislikes. And that is what produces pain as we become attached to those conditions. That is known as evil. Evil exists, remember, not in the unity of God's presence, which is available to every one of us who will investigate it a little bit and meditate, but evil exists in the duality of consciousness, this very dream in which you are watching me and I'm talking to you, and the sun is shining and all things is but God's dream. Good and evil exist there because they are a matter of duality. And they spring from these dual things of likes and dislikes, different states of consciousness, different goals set up to reach, and such things. It is not the reality. The reality is in the unity of God's consciousness. Let us realize that. And then, when we awaken, if we are attached to our dream, where is the dream? If you are not attached and consciously are watching the dream, enjoying it as we should and not be attached, if you do that, when you come out into full waking consciousness, where is the dream? It has ceased to exist because it is simply a fragment of your own consciousness manifesting in relativity. Understand these things. Evil exists only in that state of consciousness, not in the unity of God's consciousness. Same with the motion picture. When the beam comes down, you see the beam, then you see the motion picture, and you realize it's a play of light and shadow. But what happens? You become attached to it. And so much so, sometimes you go through all the emotions depicted by that light and shadow, crying and all sorts of things. You know how people carry on. Why? Simply because they're attached to the duality of the light and shadow. That's all. Now, in life, if we can realize that and not be attached, then we can not fear evil, do not fear evil, but understand it. Realize that. Do not fear evil. Understand it. And we have the ability, because we are made in the image of God, we have the ability to know and realize the unity of His presence just as much and more so as to understand this cosmic dream relativity. In that evil exists, not in the unity of God's presence. Just a reference from Master's little book. The Master said at this time, which will help you fix in your consciousness the idea of the one sole cause and end of things, God Himself. The whole universe is made of spirit. A star, a stone, a tree, and a man are equally composed of the sole substance, God. To bring into being a diversified creation, the Lord had to bestow on everything the appearance of individuality. That's nothing but relativity. You are sitting there, I'm here, separated. And yet behind and in and through us is the one eternal presence of God, never apart. We are never apart from one another, nor from God. Therefore the greatest sin is what? Separation from Him and from one another as rays of His eternal being. Master goes on to say, we would quickly tire of the earthly spectacle if we could easily see that only one person is producing the play, writing the script, painting the scenery, directing the cast, and acting the parts. Doesn't seem possible, does it? But that's what's going on. God is certainly a magician. He fools us completely. That's what's going on. So the next time anybody slaps you in the face, say, oh, that's all right. It's just God doing it. Perfectly all right. But when you realize that, then you can do as Jesus said, turn the other cheek. Now, but the show must go on. Therefore, the master dramatist has manifested throughout the cosmos an inconceivable ingenuity and an inexhaustible variety. Think of it. This one world of ours with its manifestations, you cannot comprehend them. Yet there are, as I understand it, billions of such things going around in this universe. And then we worry about our own little lives. He who has been able to do all these things, manifest them, make them and coordinate them in harmony, surely can take care of you and can take care of me. Why do we not let Him? Evil or no evil. If we could but do that, it would be simply a passing show, that's all. And finally, to unrealities, the Lord has given an aura of seeming reality. And the delusion is very dark, very deep. It's hard to be rid of it. It clings. It is tenacious. But God's love is greater. Let us understand those things. And so, going on just a little bit, let us realize that evil exists, as I have said, only in the manifested part of God, or this cosmic dream. Only in that does evil exist. And so, really, while we're in this dream consciousness, the thing to remember about good and evil is this: that which takes you toward God and toward the realization of your oneness with Him is good. That which takes you away from the consummation of that realization into attachment to duality is evil. Will you remember just those two things? Now, where does meditation come in? Good. Where does tearing around wasting your time in things of worldly existence which do not amount to Hannah Cook? Where do those things come in? There's no other answer but evil. So remember that. In this cosmic dream, these dualities exist. One, good is that which takes us toward God. And those things which come in the category of evil are those things which take us and bind us more and more by attachment to this cosmic dream. There you have good and evil. All you have to know about it. But we will tell a few more things this morning. But remember those two things, and I know that you can surely rise above it. And so, this thing, evil, when we reduce it to simple terms, simply means separation from God. That's all. In this duality of consciousness, we do not feel, that is, if we are attached to it, we do not feel one with God. We feel separated from Him. That's the greatest sin, is to follow that particular path which takes us away from God and makes us feel apart from Him. That's why there's only one sin you have to worry about, and that's separation from your one eternal Father. He has given us free will through desire to follow this cosmic dream and thereby become attached to it, that it may be perpetuated. That's why we are given free will. That we can be one with the cosmic dream and keep it going, so to speak. Keep it running as evil wants it to do. Evil is a conscious force, as I will come to. We have free will to do that, or to be smart and wise and rise above it into the one presence of God. And say, Father, I enjoy your dream, but listen, you can't fool me. I've been fooled enough. I will not be attached anymore. I want thee alone. Nothing else will satisfy me. That's the attitude to take. And you'll enjoy the cosmic dream much more without all the pain and trouble and sorrow that goes with it. That's what our attitude should be. I think the Master has something to say on this, which I'll read to you at this point from the same little book. The Master said, this is most wonderful. A sin, Master said, is anything that keeps man oblivious to God. What a wonderful saying. Think of it. When you follow those things which keep you attached to this cosmic dream consciousness, you will be oblivious to God without question of a doubt. But when you follow those things which take you upward to a higher spiritual consciousness, as meditation and love of God and one another, then you are following the good in this cosmic dream consciousness. Oblivious to God simply means separated from Him, that's all. He is with us always, He is in each one of us, behind our consciousness, thoughts, and feelings. But when we're not conscious of Him, we're separated from Him. What good is He? These are simple things. Realize these two important things. That following that which lifts you up and you feel better, you feel peaceful and blissful, is good. That which takes you into the cosmic dream consciousness and gives you attachment, and you lose your realization of your oneness with God, is evil. That's what good and evil constitutes in this cosmic dream consciousness. Now, going on just a little bit, I was going to say something about hell, but I think I won't. I think there's enough on earth, don't you? What is it? Nothing but separation from God. And if hell isn't bad enough here on earth as we look around and see what's going on, I don't want to go any further toward it. I want to get out of it. That's what hell is, separation from God, and with all the trouble that separation brings. That's all it is. There's only one eternal substance, God. Apart from Him is Hades or hell, whatever you want to call it. Oneness with Him is eternal life, unending. Heaven unending, joy and bliss unending. Now for the origin of evil. Now for the origin of evil. Some people, you say God created evil, then they get mad as a hatter at it. But there's only one eternal substance. And from that all things have come. Therefore evil must be created by God. Of course it's a roundabout way. He creates this cosmic dream, and in that we find evil. But where's the cosmic dream come from? It comes from God Himself. And so if things get too tough, tell Him that. Say, listen, you created this business, and I'm in it. I've had enough of it. Lift me out of it, and He'll lift you out of it. And so God has created evil. He has created this duality of consciousness, and when He did that, then evil came into existence. Now there is much testimony to this. There is much proof. Evil is a conscious force and does exist. Understand that. Do not treat it lightly. Evil is a conscious force and does exist. It cannot be set aside. It cannot be dismissed as non-existent. Don't try that. Because the burden of proof is that it does exist and that it is a conscious force. Jesus said what? Lead us not into temptation and deliver us from evil. You think He would have said that if evil was not a conscious, real force? Certainly not. Denial is inadequate. Now we have other references which prove that evil is a conscious force and must be dealt with as such. We read from Isaiah, 45th chapter, the 7th verse. I form the light. I create darkness, saith the Lord. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. So let's not try to pass evil away lightly, as non-existent as some people do. Of course it's non-existence in the presence of God, but how many are in the presence of God in everyday life? Evil does exist. Then we also have a revelation, a reference which proves that evil does exist in the Bhagavad Gita, the 9th chapter, the 36th line, in which Krishna, manifestation of Lord, the great Lord, the one eternal Father, manifesting in the cosmic dream, wherein we read, I am the gambling of the cheat. Think of it. I am the gambling of the cheat and the splendor of splendid things. Do not fear evil. Understand it. Understand it, that's all. So there you have sufficient references, I'm sure, to convince you that evil is something conscious and real, a conscious force. God gave Satan, so to speak, that power to consciously organize this cosmic dream, which he has done, and that's why we're in trouble while we're attached to this cosmic dream consciousness. Now, God's plan was what? His plan was that we, being his children and being divine in nature, that we view the cosmic dream, understand it, appreciate it, but never losing the fact or the understanding, the realization of the fact that we are divine and that we are a part of that consciousness which has made the cosmic dream. That was God's plan. And therefore, when we were through with the cosmic dream, having never lost our divinity, we would once more go into that fullness of oneness with God. That was God's plan. Along came the devil, and what did he do? He had another idea. He wants his kingdom to be perpetuated because he is a conscious force created by God in this dual consciousness of existence. And so he came along and he said, now, friends, it isn't necessary to wait until you're through with this cosmic dream and then once more into the conscious realization of your divinity. He says, enjoy it right now. All these things which are created are for your enjoyment. Enjoy them to the limit. You don't have to wait right now. And so we've done it. And what happens? Attachment comes with all that misery that goes with it. That's why this conscious force called Satan operates that way, to perpetuate the cosmic dream. And if he can perpetuate it by causing us to be attached to it, the dream will go on because you and I come back over and over and over and keep the thing going. Are we to be such fools when we're made in the image of God? Understand evil. Don't fear it. And so it is wonderful to have these wonderful interpretations given by our Master, and those who meditate will understand them. It isn't something you cannot understand. You can easily understand it if you'll give a little time to God every day. Just a little time to understand your Father, your only relative, the only friend that'll be with you when you're through with this existence. So much for God's plan, so much for the devil's plan, Satan's plan. Now, why evil exists? Why evil exists, I have practically told you, only because you become attached to the cosmic dream. That's all. In God's consciousness, it will not exist. But as long as you are attached to this cosmic dream, evil will exist with the results of following evil, suffering, and discomfiture in all things, all undesirable things. Evil exists so that finally, when we've had enough of it, we will turn back to God. That's why God created this evil in another sense. First, that he might enjoy this cosmic dream through us as parts of himself. And secondly, he made pain and evil and suffering so that we would have to return back home to him. Now, the wise person, the wise devotee, does not wait until he's down and beaten up, so to speak, and out, but he uses his wisdom and discretion and turns toward God without the effects of following evil and being engrossed in this cosmic dream consciousness. That's why evil exists, so that finally we will turn back to God as the only way left for us. Now, when a man avails himself or allies himself with evil, what happens? in harmony will reign. On the other hand, when a man allies himself with good, with those things which turn us up toward God, harmony must prevail. Harmony must prevail. And the moment you turn toward God, harmony begins to build up within you. Of course, through karma, some inharmony will remain, but you are turning toward God. Your turning toward God means you are improving spiritually from that moment on. Harmony begins to grow within you and manifest within you. And so, in inharmony, we find the duality of consciousness, with all its disappointment. But in the unity of God's presence, or in the harmonious consciousness, we find peace and bliss and joy. There is no other way to go to sensible children of God than back home to Him. One little story comes to my mind at this time. You've been very patient and been very attentive, which is good. But one of these little children, which have been, I was going to say squawking, I better not, crying here. I don't mind it at all. I see they've quieted down. I don't know where they are or where they've gone, but anyway, it reminded me of this little story. It's all in the duality of consciousness. It's all here in this realm in which we live. And so, when I heard that crying, it reminded me of this man who was walking down the street. He was a very intelligent man, very intelligent. And as he came by this house, he heard this yelling and screaming inside, and naturally he went in. And this lady said, she says, "Oh, my son, you know the little fellow," he says, "he just swallowed a quarter. And what'll I do? What'll I do?" Well, the man, having presence of mind and common sense, he just took the little fellow by the heels and he shook him, and finally the quarter bounced out. And she said, "My," he said, "that's wonderful. Wonderful. But you certainly knew how to get that money out of him." And she says, "Are you a doctor?" He says, "No, I'm not a doctor. I'm from the Internal Revenue." They know how to get the money out, don't they? So the next time they come around, be kind to them. Now finally, about this good and evil, there's a code of good and evil, the moral code. The moral code. You say, well, if this cosmic dream is just a cosmic dream of God, how is it that there seems to be good and evil? And there seems to be an obligation upon us to do good and to follow good, not follow evil. Why? Because of this moral code. And what's behind the moral code? Conscience. Conscience will dictate to you. Conscience is the key, what you should do in following good or evil. Now, what is conscience? Well, man is both a human being and a spiritual being. He has an animalistic nature and a spiritual nature. Now, conscience is self-consciousness plus intuition. Now, the animals do not have conscience, but they have instinct. What is instinct? Consciousness plus intuition. It is the self-consciousness that determines your conscience, and you cannot escape because you're made in the image of God. You have self-consciousness which He has to a great degree, in which He knows all things and is cognizant of all things that are happening in His universe upon universe at one time. Think of the self-consciousness God has. We too have self-consciousness, but we have self-consciousness of our body fully. He has given us that little thing to start with. But by meditation and expanding our consciousness to oneness with His expanded state of consciousness, we too can have full consciousness of not only God's cosmic dream consciousness, but also His unmanifested state of God alone. Such is the gift of the one eternal Father. Conscience. Conscience is behind all good and evil. Conscience exists in this cosmic drama of life for that purpose, that we not only cease from doing evil, but that we also know through conscience how to return back home to God. And so, in closing the subject of good and evil, a reference once more from our Master's work as follows. First from one little part from the Bible, then from his Master said, "It is written, Whosoever committeth sin transgresseth also the law, for sin is the transgression of the law." Conscience will tell you whether you are transgressing the law. That's all you have to worry about, is to be honest and true to yourself, relying on your conscience, which is the presence of God in you. That's all. And finally from the Master said, "Those that dwell on evil hurt themselves. Men that find their minds with wisdom, men that fill their minds with wisdom, and their lives with constructive activities, spare themselves ignoble suffering." And so the origin of evil is God. The escape from evil is also God. God's eternal, all-pervading, ever-present, omniscient love.